Hey guys, so I'm in the vegetable garden today, and one of the things we're talking about is getting rid of yellow jackets, hornets, and wasps. And I'm going to show you a super simple way. Two types of methods here. One is going to be a baiting trap, and the other is going to be a live catch trap that will eliminate them that way. But what I've got is, I've got a booklet that goes into great detail. And if you'd like to download that, go to my Patreon. If you're already a member there, you can get it for free, or you can just buy it outright if you don't want to become a member. Either way is fine with me. But this will truly get rid of those wasp, hornets, yellow jackets, things that are going to bite and sting. They're very dangerous around your home for your pets and your children. So let's head into the potting shed. A little steamy in the greenhouse today. We'll head over there and I'll show you how to put this together. It's super simple to do. Doesn't hardly cost anything to do as well. It's a very low cost trap, so you don't have to worry about toxic chemicals and sprays, and I always avoid doing that around my vegetable garden. So let's head over there and I'll show you exactly how to put it together. Now the first trap is actually a feeding type trap, and you're probably thinking, well, why would I want to feed any of these creatures that are going to attack me at some point? Well, you're feeding them a very special solution that's going to collapse their entire colony. And this is not only for your yard. These wasps, bees, hornets, they can travel a mile and sometimes more looking for food. And so these may cover your entire neighborhood. So you're talking about up to and over 1 mile distance from your location where you're putting these traps. You're not limited just to one trap either. I would recommend doing this multiple areas away from the house, all around your property, maybe at the four corners of your property if you have a square property. If you have a very large property, you might do 5 or 10 of these traps, or a small type urban, suburban type setting, you might just do 1 or 2 large traps. But it is really effective. The first trap we're talking about is a feeding type trap that's going to, like I said, it's just going to collapse the entire colony. Now, first I'm going to show you the basic setup on one of these larger type traps, and I'm going to show you some aluminum can traps as well, and those are even easier to make, and it's something that you're going to normally throw away. But what we're doing on these large traps here, we're just going to cut a small 1-inch window in each trap. And be very careful. If you're clumsy, make sure you wear a pair of gloves when you're doing this. But if you're very careful, you can usually cut a window pretty easy. Just keep your fingers away from it there. I would recommend you're using a pair of heavy leather gloves, like I said, if you're not proficient with razor blades and cutting tools. And so we're just cutting that window out there. And I'll explain to you why it's so narrow in just a second. So there you go. We have a very narrow, maybe even less, 3/4 of an inch window right here, and there's a very specific reason we want it so small. Now the bait on these two types of traps have a very specific purpose. One, you have your sugars. Depending on the time of year, whether it's the queen of the nest trying to start a new nest, might be looking for sugars. Other times they may be looking for proteins. These are just some type of sausages. We have cat food. Tuna is great, especially if it's an oil. This, and unfortunately, is in water. And even these little cat treat sticks that we have quite a few of. So anything like this is going to be your proteins, and then this is going to be your sugar. So depending on the time of year and what type of wasp has came to your trap, they're going to feed off one of the others. But you're going to put both inside the trap. It's going to attract them right to it. They're going to feed off of it, go back to their colony, and I'll explain to you what happens in just a sec. Now, this is the one we've cut right there, and it's got that very narrow 3/4 of an inch hole. You don't have to make it any bigger than that, but you do want it kind of wide there. So what we've done is we're preventing any other things like birds, hummingbirds, cats, and dogs from easily getting to our bait. Now, this bait that we're using and the product that's going to be mixed in with it is completely safe for pets. It would take huge volumes of it to harm an animal, and we're only putting a small amount in there. But what we're doing is we're making this exclusively for our yellow jackets, hornets, and wasps. And a lot of people are going to ask, well, what about honeybees? What about other pollinating insects? I've made a lot of these, and I've observed them. I put a time-lapse camera on there and then watched and see what came to the nest. Every time it was one of those 3: yellow jackets, wasp, or hornets. Always go in here. Honeybees, I've never seen them either in the feeding trap or the live catch trap. So either one, you don't have to worry about. Whatever you're going to make, you don't have to worry about your honeybees getting in here, because I want to protect honeybees as well. And I've got a plant in the yard. If I have time, I'll show you that specific plant that you can put around your garden. It draws in more pollinators than anything I've ever seen. I'll give you a quick glimpse of that. But this is the setup for the large trap. Now I'll also show you the setup for the small aluminum can trap, something you're going to throw away. You can turn it into something very productive for your garden. Key thing to remember is you're not setting these traps anywhere near where people congregate, where you have a barbecue grill or anything like that. You want this to be as far away from the house as possible because you're wanting to draw those stinging insects away from your home. Now, this is one of the best pollination plants I've ever seen. I've stepped out of the potting shed just for a minute because I wanted to show you. There's one coming in right there. They'll come in, pollinate. This is pickerel. I ordered this actually from Etsy. It arrived in a little plastic bag. I put them in the ground and it multiplied. I think I ordered 4 or 5 of them, and now I had just literally hundreds. I've got some in the front, some over in another bed and in this bed, but this is a bog plant. So if you decide you want to plant some of this, you're going to need to put it in some type of container that doesn't allow the water to escape. But this will incredibly draw in pollinators, as you see right there. Even though we just had a heavy rain, they're starting to come back out and start pollinating again. So if you want to draw pollinators to your vegetable garden, this is the best thing. And a lot of times I only see bumblebees and butterflies and things like that. So it doesn't attract wasps and hornets and yellow jackets. It is attracting those good pollinators that we want around our vegetable garden. So let's head back into the potting shed. We'll finish up on our 2 traps. Now, when we're talking about boric acid, and that's the key ingredient that's going to make this work, borax a lot of times is confused with boric acid powder. This powder I purchased online, I'll put a link in the description, is 99.9% pure. It reacts with the insect's digestive system, and also it dries out their exoskeleton, so it kills them in a couple of different ways. So you can buy this sometimes at big hardware stores, so if you don't want to purchase it online, you can just pick it up somewhere locally. But I will try to make this as simple as possible to put this together by putting a link in the description, and I'll try to find the best price possible. So don't bother with borax washing powder. You want this specifically as your mix. I'm going to give you the exact recipe and how to mix it and tips on how to place each trap as we go along. So let's go back to our trap. So this is the boric acid powder I've been using for several years now, but I want to say a few things about boric acid. If you put too much boric acid in there, it can make the bait taste off or smell too strong. So that can drive insects away. You have to remember you want to not coat any of the things you put in there, like we talked about the sausages or the cat food. We're trying to very, very cleverly contaminate our food source. So we don't want to just dump a lot of white powder in there. Make sure that you do a proper mixing with the boric acid and make sure that it is the 99.9% purity, and stay away from the laundry detergent, which a lot of people get these two confused. Now I am going to put on my leather gloves before I make the second version of our trap container. You can use any type of soda can you want to. You can use the larger sizes that they came out with in recent years, but that's not really important. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a similar situation that we have in our large container. So if you have just 6, 7, 8 of these cans, you can do a nice perimeter all the way around your property. But what you want to do, and again, when you're dealing with aluminum, cutting it and things like that, you definitely need to wear your gloves because it can be quite dangerous. So let's cut a V pattern in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our razor blade, and we're not going to go all the way to the bottom. You want to leave about 1 to 1.5 inches from the bottom. Okay, we're going to carefully push in that top piece and push it in like that. Now, I'll tell you another way you need to make sure that this is going to work properly in just a second. But as you can see, we've got really sharp edges here. So this is great because you can lift up the tab on it, and this can be your hanger. So you've got a built-in hanger, you've got an entryway for your wasp, bees, and hornets, and you can put this in many places, and it won't be quite so obvious if you have a darker colored can. Also on this top, you can put some painter's tape to cover it up because we don't want a lot of water coming into the top, although some may blow in from the side. But we just want to keep our mix as concentrated as possible so they'll take it back to the nest and just kill off the entire colony. And then that will go on and it'll multiply as the months and years go by. You won't have those incredible numbers of wasp, hornets, and yellow jackets that could multiply over a period of time. So this is the can example, and we've already showed you the plastic bottle. This is really inconspicuous. You could hang it in a tree, and I would recommend between 6 and 8 feet off the ground. Also, you want to keep pets away from it, so you want to make sure it's high enough they can't get to it. All right, so let's do our mixture here, and you don't have to use apple juice. You could use orange juice, any type of juice that has a very sugary content in it. The purer, the better. And we're going to do 1 cup of our juice. Then we're going to do 1/8 to 1/2 of a teaspoon, just a very small amount. We don't have to put a lot in there. And then we're going to put our meat product in there because we want to contaminate it so that when the wasp, hornets, yellow jackets, when they start consuming it, if they're looking for a protein, they're going to be very surprised when they take it back to the nest because the colony will not last long after that. So we want to put that in there. We just want to gently shake it to make sure that our meat is contaminated. Let it sit for 1 to 2 hours before adding it to the trap to make sure the meat has become contaminated with our boric acid powder. So as far as what we're attracting, a lot of times if you're having a cookout, you'll notice there'll be yellow jackets near the meat before you can turn around. But depending on the time of the year and the type of insect of the three we're talking about, wasp, yellow jackets, and hornets, they're going to be either looking for those sugars or proteins. And we've got both in this trap and even a little added surprise for them. Now, whether you've opted to go with a large plastic bottle or just ordinary soda cans, you don't want to make the liquid too deep because we want our insects to come in, take our bait, and then take it back to the colony. And we want at least 1 to 2 pieces of meat in with our apple juice and our boric acid powder. Again, with this can, you can easily overfill it. So we're only looking for about a 1/2 inch of liquid in there and the meat sitting in it as well. So just remember, you don't want to overfill it all the way up because if it's too deep, they may actually become trapped and not take our formula back to the nest. So it's really a simple thing to do is making that right there. And one of the things I have to tell you is there's one little secret that you have to do on each one of these types of traps to make sure it works effectively. A lot of people forget this next step, but it's absolutely critical. Now, this is the most important item that, as I just said, that people forget is something as simple as a stick. These are just pine sticks that I picked up out of the yard. And you want to make sure that you put these into the trap, down into the liquid, and put it out on the edge. Make sure they're not going to fall all the way into the liquid. They need to stick out. So as the wasp takes our bait, it can easily climb its way back out. It's very easy for the wasp to fall inside the liquid and not be able to get back out. So you just want to put maybe 2 sticks in there so they can climb back out and then fly away. Same thing about this. Even though this is a small opening, you'd think they could get back out pretty easy. No, I would recommend putting a stick in there so they can climb their way back out and then fly away back to their colony, their hive, and share the bait or the food that they found with the rest of the colony or the hive. Now, just a quick note about timing and what is the best time of year to use this trap. Spring is an excellent time. You want to use your proteins. This may help attract early workers from the colony. Meat can be especially useful when colonies are growing. Summer is great for proteins and sugar as well. Both work, I'd say, as equally well. I found that to be true, that I've made traps with only sugar and only proteins and just contaminated the meats, and it each attracted the same number of wasps. So summer, you're going to get a basic run of both because of the sugar and the protein. Late summer, the apple juice becomes extremely important because yellow jackets often become more aggressive around sweet food. So you want to make sure that when yellow jacket populations are at their largest, you're using a sweet apple juice, which will attract them even faster. If you ever sat next to a pool in the summertime with a sweet drink, you'll know that yellow jackets will almost always come right to you. Now, fall, sugar can be the best thing of all because they're preparing for a long winter. Wasp may be more desperate and aggressive, so you want to keep the traps far away from people because fall yellow jackets can be bold as well as the wasp. Now, as I said earlier, I especially want to protect the honeybees around my garden because those are my #1 pollinator, as well as some butterflies that show up from time to time. So you want to make sure that you put these traps away from any flowers. Never use honey as your sweetener. Make sure that you do this away from any type of bee colonies, but I've yet to find where we actually see one honeybee going into either type of trap. Now we're going to move on to the live catch trap, but again, this is going to absolutely decimate wasp, hornets, and yellow jackets anywhere from up to a mile and beyond around your yard. So this works great. Make one of these, whatever size, put them on all 4 corners of your property. If you have a super large property, you might go up to 20 of the small can sizes, and that can have a huge effect, especially if you're allergic or your family's allergic or you have pets that are in the yard. It will absolutely prevent stinging. So let's move on to the live catch trap. Now this is the live catch trap, and I've already assembled most of it. I still have a little bit of work left to do on it, but what you do is you just take an ordinary 5-gallon bucket, 4 pieces of PVC. I've taken some metal strapping so the PVC will stay in place. I've taken the lid of our 5-gallon bucket. I've put 4 large screws in it so the lid will stay in place, whether from high winds or anything like that. Then next, I'll show you real quick, we need to cut these within about 1 inch of the top, maybe 1.5 inches from the top of our bucket. So we'll go around each side and do that. Now we've got our very stable PVC set up there, and what I'm going to show you, we've got 4 very long screws in 4 corners of the top of the bucket, around the edges of the bucket. I'm going to put that in there, make sure that one screw goes into each one. And this way, we're creating a gap. A little bit tricky because our angle there, but let's just carefully push it on there. Now what we're doing is we're creating a gap. I'm going to push these a little bit lower, but what happens is the bees are going to come in. We're going to have our baits, our meats attached to the top there. We're going to add some sugary liquids, whether it's orange juice or apple juice, to the water. But there's one key ingredient. Now this is not a feeding trap. This is a live catch trap. And I've put these out and literally came back a few days later and just found hundreds of yellow jackets, few wasps, and even one hornet in the trap in just that short amount of time. Now we've got our live catch trap in its basic form here. We've got our gap here that strong winds will not blow the top off. It will not collapse down on itself. But what you want to do is you want to fill it almost to the top with water, maybe a 1/4 of an inch from the top, and then add a good 2 tablespoons of dish soap to it. Any type you've got will work. Mix it in there, and then what happens is, since we're going to put the bait underneath, right at the center, yellow jackets, hornets, wasps are going to come in. They're going to try to grab a piece of it, and then they're going to fall just a little bit as they start to fly away, and they fall into our liquid soap trap. The surface tension has been broken, so without the liquid soap, they could probably land on the water and still fly away. But with the liquid soap, they break the surface tension and they actually drowned in there. So like I said, I've seen a huge result with these. I had an entire yellow jackets nest one time. I just set one of these buckets within 10 feet of the yellow jackets coming out of the ground. Next morning, came back out and it was filled all afternoon and overnight. And the next day, they got up a lot earlier than I did, went into the trap, and it just decimated their colony, nest, whatever you want to call it. So this is a live catch trap. It kills the yellow jackets as they go in and try to get the meat that's now attached to the inside of the top of the bucket, and it just traps them in the liquid. So you have two options here. You can bait, and I would recommend actually doing both. You can bait the liquid and they'll take it back to their colony, which could be anywhere under a tree, 1/2 mile from your home, or you could get something like this going and it could trap a lot of yellow jackets. Now, as I said, I've never seen any honeybees in here, and my pollinators I'm concerned about are the kind of the bumblebees, the honeybees, butterflies, and things like that. I'm perfectly okay with those in my yard, but when it comes to those stinging insects, it can be quite dangerous, as my wife can be quite affected by insect bites and stings. Now, as I said at the very beginning of the video, this wasp, hornet, and yellow jacket control guide is going to answer all the questions you've got. It's more of a booklet than just a very short explanation. It's 11 pages packed with information. It's going to tell you all you need to know about this trap and our feeding trap. So take a look at that. You can buy it outright or become a member of the Patreon and get access to all the others as well. So guys, I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions in the YouTube comments down below, please become a public subscriber first, because I tend to organize the comments in that direction so I can answer as many as possible. I get anywhere from 300, 400, 500 questions a month, and it's almost impossible to answer everything. So guys, I hope this helps you greatly with your wasp, hornets, and yellow jackets, and you never get stung again. Have a great day.